I'm joined by Nick here. We're going to do a session on reining in dashboard sprawl. It's something that I know a lot of data teams deal with. As a consultant, as somebody who's managed these teams before, when I come into a place, I sometimes ask myself, why are there 5,000 dashboards? Why are there 4 BI systems and a notebooking system? And how do we kind of put this all together? So we'll get into that in just a few minutes here. Nick's got a lot of thoughts on that, has built a solution that, does help solve for some of that, among other things. And I think it'll be good. Yeah, I met Nick about a year and a half ago, maybe, as he was building out Workstream. He's got a lot of ideas about what the proper way is to run a workflow, alignment with the business, and where that business data comes from. Like me, New Yorker, and I'll let you take it over, Nick, and show us your view of the world, what you're building, and how to get stuff done with data with Workstream.
Awesome. Well, Lauren, of course, thanks for having me. Always great to chat about getting things done with data and having the opportunity to show what we're up to at Workstream. But I'm Nick. Great to meet everyone. I'm the founder and CEO of Workstream.io. So just a little bit about me before I kind of get into the topic of dashboard sprawl and how to get under control. So my background, I started my career as an analyst at Tesla about 15 years ago. So I had a lot of hands-on experience from the analytical seat, working really closely with the teams that brought the Tesla Roadster and Model S to market, and found a lot of kind of acute pain points around my workflow as an analyst, kind of working with folks throughout the business. And then most recently, I kind of switched things up and I led operations at a SaaS company here in New York. And among other things, I worked really closely with kind of the analytics team that I helped stand up at that company. So I call myself a recovering analyst turned operator. And Workstream.io, we're a seed stage technology company. We've been building our product and business for the last couple of years, and I can talk more about it. But we have what we call an analytics hub, and it helps you bring together disparate data assets, key knowledge, and all of your data-related workflows into a single repository for your team. So I can show you a little bit more what that looks like later. But what's really unique about our product is it's all built around kind of the existing tools that data teams and their business stakeholders already use. So the topic of today's session is rating in dashboard sprawl. And so to start, I kind of just wanted to talk about what is dashboard sprawl? How does this unfold within a business, right? And so I talk a lot with data teams and honestly just anyone who uses data in a business a lot about just this transition to kind of a state of chaos in your organization with all of your data assets. And as I was prepping for this session, I found this awesome quote from this guy, James Newman, who was a famous mathematist back in the 30s and 40s, just about kind of entropy in general and how there's this general trend towards death and disorder in the universe, right? And obviously a pretty dramatic way to describe what entropy is, or the transition from order to chaos. But I like it because it kind of speaks to the fact that I actually think the stakes here are pretty big, right? Around who can use your data, how do they understand it, and what is their perception of your work as a data team. And so data or dashboard sprawl in general is this state where all of your assets, the output of your team becomes completely unwieldy, and you get towards this state of entropy. And it causes all of these problems that I'll talk about. But one of the really interesting things that I've found working on this problem for the last couple of years, it feels like this issue about dashboard sprawl, it's actually getting worse, and it's multiplying, I think, into something much broader around data asset sprawl. And so if we rewound the clock back 20 years, what would an organization's stack look like for analyzing and consuming data? You might have something like Tableau, or Tableau and another BI tool to complement it for a different function or different use cases. And then you probably ran a bunch of like ad hoc analysis in something like Excel. When we looked at today, I mean, I think there's this, and I don't think this is that brilliant a comment, there's this like Cambrian explosion of all of these different tools to analyze and consume data in different places. So there's more visualization and reporting tools than ever before. Teams are introducing more and more of these into their environment. There's lots of different ways that you can perform ad hoc analysis, from notebooks, as Lauren was mentioning, to spreadsheets, which do still float around quite a bit within organizations. You know, you've got things like product analytics tools that have come to market, or increasingly people are consuming data natively in systems like Salesforce, or maybe even your customer support solution like Zendesk. And those could be custom data objects. That could even be reporting and analysis that's living natively in those tools for a number of different reasons. I think, like it or not, this is the reality of how businesses get things done. And so we're starting to see this sprawl of data assets across various systems. And if you've invested in something like self-service analytics, it's going to just exacerbate this problem even more. And so when you think of kind of that state of chaos, what does that mean? And how do you then characterize like what lives within all of within that environment, and how do you characterize all those various things, right? And to me, and this is of course like a real oversimplification, but if you look at all of the data assets that live within your environment, and you were to plot them on their value to the business, you're going to have some real subset of assets that are like the Glengarry assets, the amazing assets. Lauren, I've talked to her about this quite a bit. She has like whole projects where she rolls out what she calls Mount Olympus assets to clients, right? And those are the really high value assets that are critical to the business. And these are the ones that are oftentimes or almost or always maintained by your team. And then there's kind of like everything else. You can call it trash. I don't know what you want to call it, but this is all the other stuff that's cluttering up your environment. Some folks might have like 10,000 assets in their Looker environment. Okay, I'm not exaggerating. And this is stuff that maybe end users have built, or was built a long time ago and is no longer like accurate, or it's just like fully broken. And so we can talk about the split between the 20 and the 80, but like, how does the business differentiate this, right? And how does the business know what to go to and get access to, and what they should be using in different scenarios? And of course, like, what should they trust, right? It's a problem, and this problem is the natural conclusion of any like investment in data in your organization. Like, entropy is inevitable, right? It's this gradual descent into like death, despair, and destruction. So how do you get your hands around this? And I'm not like the first person who's thought about the issue of data asset sprawl. Teams do a lot of work today already to try to like rein in the problem. And so here are a couple of just like practical tips or things that I see folks kind of just doing in the, let's say, the world before work stream. So how do you curate the 20% of stuff that like is really important to the business that you stand behind and support? You want folks to trust, right? So folks will do stuff like build out folders of certified assets. So this could be like a folder within Mode or in Looker or in Tableau, like insert name of system. Like you create a folder, you call it certified, you shove a bunch of assets into it, and okay, now we have a folder of certified assets. It's also really important that people know how to use something. And so oftentimes documentation, as annoying as it is to write up documentation, people write up documentation and it'll live in some system like your intranet. That could be Confluence, that could be Google Doc. There's a number of different like intranet tools that are out there. And then you might also stand up some type of like service desk. And service desk, I use the word very broadly. Many teams will just make that a Slack channel. Some teams will implement something formal like Jira Service Desk that is more transactional, but like it feeds into onto their like Agile board in Jira. And they can use that to manage question and answer and workflow, right? And so these are some of the approaches that I imagine most of the folks on the team have dabbled with or have thought about to address this problem. For the 20%, right? For the 80%, there's this really long tail of stuff that is bad. And what do you do with it? And how do you understand if it's even bringing any value to the business? So like, what do people do? Teams with time and teams that like really invest in like product thinking will do like user interviews, right? And so you can send an analyst or a member of the team off to interview all of the various stakeholders and understand what their problems are and which dashboards they actually use, and kind of try and kind of triangulate that as you would as like a product manager. So you should do that, of course. Sometimes, but all that information is very like qualitative, right? So you want to triangulate that with quantitative information if you can. And so if you can, what you want to then do is mine some available usage data. I have available here in with like asterisks around it, because honestly, like the usage data is often really hard to come by in these SaaS products. And it gets even more complicated if you have like multiple different tools that you're using. But knowing like, okay, like what's the most popular dashboard by views is a good thing to go ahead and to try to like parse if you can. And then all that information will probably feed into not only like, well, how do we invest in more of these types of like good assets and how do we make these better? But they also can then inform like the really fun, like quarterly or regular, like cleanup mass delete project, which is the really fun project where you like go into your different systems and like manually delete stuff for like a day, which is like worth doing, but it's a terrible waste of time. Anyways, those are some of the ways that I've seen and talked to a lot of people about how they Rein in dashboard sprawl, or how they try to get their arms around the problem. But I would say generally what I see is as you get to some level of maturity and scale, those solutions are going to fail for a number of different reasons. And honestly, this is where our product comes in. But a couple of the reasons this fails is, creating a folder within Looker, as an example, it doesn't give you a single place to organize assets across multiple systems. So again, if you think about Sprawl extending the bounds to other systems, there's no single place to do that. Other than like a list in a doc, which creates its own set of problems. If you're investing in building out like documentation or collaborative workflows with the business, solutions like your intranet or a Jira Service Desk, as an example, they're really these like separate destinations. And so you have like collaboration and documentation living in like one place, and then your actual productivity, your data work is happening at a different place. So it creates lots of context switching and like pain points. And then there's just like missing capabilities in general. Some of the stuff I was talking about around like, well, how do you actually get at like quantitative usage data? And in the end, like there's just lots of manual labor involved in all of this, like mass deleting stuff or stitching together your own solutions. And so in the end, it wastes a lot of time and money for your team. And it's not honestly just like your team, the folks you work with throughout the business are going to feel this pain as much as you're going to feel it, if not more. And ultimately, there's then also like a lack of trust that can develop between teams. Because if there's, pardon my French, if there's a bunch of crap living in your environment, people know what to look at, and they can't do their job, and they feel like you're not doing your job, right? And so it's a problem that is going to occur in your environment, and the stakes are actually pretty big. So one of the things our product can do is help you get your arms around the problem that is dashboard or data asset sprawl. And we do that by trying to help you bring it all together, all of your assets together in knowledge and workflows into a centralized repository for your team, which we call our analytics hub. So I guess with that, I can transition into a demo. But Lauren, as I'm going, or if you want me to touch on anything else as I transition here, let me know.
No, it's great. I mean, this is from in my first job when I was, 22, 23, all the way to now, starting out as a good junior analyst, to what I'm doing now. It's been a problem almost everywhere. I don't think the BI tools do a good enough job. I don't think, working between multiple tools. A lot of your teams also just, they're going to inevitably use Google Sheets. So, huge problem. I also think like it'd be good to show in the demo, like, how this is both a business user tool and the data team tool. Because like, it's very much like, I don't know, the entropy you described to me is like the trust that dissipates over time. Like as you get to entropy, you lose trust. And when you lose trust, you don't get budget to hire new things, or you can't hire that extra person, or you get into these little battles, with human beings working together. So I think it would be good to also definitely show like the human aspect of business, data person, like things like that. I think that would
Sure.
be.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think of our product honestly as like it's a collaboration solution built for analytics teams, and the job to be done that is analytics, right? And the users are data people, but they're like all the other folks throughout the business, right? And that's honestly like the perspective that I came at the problem from, because I had been an analyst, but then my most recent experience was like on the other side of the coin. And I think to your point, and I'll queue up, I'll start doing the demo now, but I think it's definitely a problem that is pretty ubiquitous, but it's not like a sexy problem to solve in a lot of ways. Anyways, I don't know where I was going with that, but Lauren, if you can't see my screen, let me know.
Yeah, no, I got it up. We're good.
Okay, cool. So I'm starting the demo from showing you our web app, which we also call our knowledge repository. There's other aspects to the system. And I'm generally going to demo this from the perspective of like a data person, but I'll call out where like the experience might slightly differ if you are like a business stakeholder. So I would say at the highest level, think of our web app as a clean environment for you to curate assets and knowledge for your team, and build out stuff like collections for your end users. And so as the owner of your workspace, you effectively have access to everything within the workspace and can manage stuff, but then you give very specific access to kind of all the other folks that you work with throughout your business. And so their workspace becomes a very personalized workspace with things that is relevant to them. So anyways, with that quick intro, you're looking at think of this as a drive with assets across all these various systems. So that might be like a dashboard that's in Looker, or like even a one-off Google Doc, or a report in Mode. I've got stuff from Tableau in here. We've got this is a dashboard that lives within Salesforce that's in this environment as well. I think I've got like the dreaded one-off Google Sheet here. And so single place where you can collect all of these various things and give people access to them. At a first glance, if you're looking at some of these cards, we also give you some additional context about these things. So like, hey, is there documentation that's associated with this thing? Or are there conversations that your business is actively having about this? And that could be like feedback on the color of a tile. That could be like an insight that somebody in the org is having about the data, right? We give you a lot of options for categorizing assets, maybe by their life cycle, or hey, is this like a certified, like Glengarry, in Warren's words, like Mount Olympus type of asset? And you can see like even trend information around like, hey, like are people uploading this asset within our work? And then we give you a lot of different ways to like tag and organize things, which I can kind of get into later. But this includes both like kind of custom tags you've created within our system, as well as tags you might have synced in from your BI tool, as an example. As you start to, anyways, I won't belabor this too much more, but as you start to categorize assets in all these different ways, we'll start to break out like sub collections of them for you, so that you can say, hey, here's everything that's in development within our system, or hey, here are assets that are expiring with like a specific end date, or hey, here are all the kind of just the certified assets. And then you can also, so this is the stuff that kind of like lives here for you, to kind of like just automatically within our system. And then you can also build out what we call collections, and everyone kind of knows what a collection is. I won't belabor the point. The one thing I'll call out is our collections are unique in that they're not folders. They allow the same asset to live effectively in multiple collections. So you don't have to create multiple assets and stick them into different folders. Collections basically are built based off of kind of these flexible filters and tagging rules, and I can talk more about it, and then you can give people access based off of that. So those are some of the ways that you can like use Workstream to organize all of this stuff into collections and single repositories. Of course, we support stuff like search, and again, for us, what we enable is like unified search across all these various systems and the assets that live within them. And even context, right? Like documentation that's been curated around these assets, or even conversations that are happening around your sales pipeline, as an example. So with that, let me like hop into an asset, and you can see what it's like if you and your team is accessing things using our system. So in this case, I'm viewing an asset and it's natively embedded here within my web app. We also have a lot of different options for opening these things up natively, and we also support these tools from your native UIs as well. So I'll get into that in a minute. But if you're viewing this thing with Workstream, now as a business end user, there's a lot of additional information that I have access to. So I can see that, hey, this thing is certified, and it was Steve who certified it at this specific date. Information about trends in whether people find it valuable and upvoting it, like that lifecycle information. If there's documentation that you might have curated for an asset like this, you can now also access this documentation right here in line with the live data itself. And that could include a Loom video or other training materials in other kind of media formats. I think this should have been obvious, but in case it wasn't, this is the live dashboard. This isn't like a screenshot. It's updated on the same cadence as it would be updated in your like local Looker environment. And so that's one of our big things is we believe that all of these workflows and collaboration that should all live directly in line with your live data. And then you can also see conversations that might have happened. And so this user, Joe, actually promoted a frequently asked question. And this is now publicly available to any user within the organization that has access to this asset. And you can see the entire conversation history, what was asked and what was answered. When people are posting comments, you can like do cool things like use snapshots of exactly what this looked like at that moment in time. And you have all the like functionality that you would expect in like a normal collaboration solution, like at mentioning others and looping them in, et cetera, et cetera. Here's like another one-off conversation. I'll just pull it up because we also, around feedback, and we also have a lot of rich options around calling out specific things and annotations. So you can annotate you or anyone on your team can go ahead and, annotate an asset on the fly. And that annotation now, again, lives here in line and in context with not only the live asset, but the conversation it pertains to. And so again, it's all about kind of consolidation. And of course, we send, off notifications to email or Slack or whatever, where folks can reply or respond. Of course, you could start a new conversation like here as well, if you wanted to interact with others, and that could just be like a generic conversation. Maybe it's like feedback that you might have, or a question. And use cases here are often like become peer-to-peer, like, hey, like what's going on with like pipeline from sales manager to another sales manager. Or it could be a request for like an improvement to the data team. And again, you get really targeted with what that request is. So some of this stuff is like a bit tangential to like the exact topic of dashboard sprawl, but kind of speaks to how you can use Workstream to really invest in a data-driven organization and creating like a lot of shared consciousness around your data and your data assets. So that's how you can get a really rich and deep experience for your users by using Workstream to kind of create all of this like inline documentation and training content. A couple other things I'll call out kind of on this topic of curating like the 20% of assets. So the first thing is I was showing you an asset that's natively embedded within our system, but we also support assets that don't embed or users that would prefer to continue to access stuff in these other tools. And so this is just a Salesforce like opportunity report. And in this case, it just kicks you out to Salesforce. And we have what we call the data concierge. And you install it as part of onboarding. And it brings all of our functionality and our experience directly on top of the UI of your tool. So this is like an add context here or add video, all the stuff I was showing you. If you want, you can draw and annotate directly here natively as well. So really kind of agnostic to where folks want to consume this information, and we're kind of there to support you wherever you choose. And so think of Workstream in that way for the 20%. And it can be, again, this clean space for you to invest in curating and managing kind of supported assets. But you still have the long tail of assets. And so like, what do you do with those, like the 80% of garbage? And so to do that, I'll just call out one or two things. So first off, to add something into our system, there's a number of ways to do it. You can just grab the link of anything, any supported asset type, and just like add it as a one-off at any point in time. And that's like a really quick and easy way to get started with Workstream. But if you really want to address some of these long tail issues, what you can do is go ahead and connect us via their APIs to your various systems. And so that can include your BI tool or something like Jira as an example. And I didn't show you, but if I pull it back up, any one of these conversations that lives here within our system, because we're connected to your Jira project, it automatically creates a ticket in your Jira backlog. And so it's kind of helping automate that piece of the workflow. And again, allowing for collaboration and context setting in context with the live data, but to kind of support your current agile, project management methodology or what have you. But anyways, if you want to address the long tail, I'm sorry I digressed, you can connect us to something like Looker or Tableau as an example. And in this case, we'll go ahead and we'll sync in all of your assets up front and anything new that gets created on a daily basis. And then we start to serve up like information to you about what's happening in your environment. And so it's like, hey, there was new assets that were created over the last day. And we'll let you know, and you can go ahead and investigate. Or, hey, here are assets where there are actually underlying failures. And I didn't show this to you, but if you connect us to your DBT project, we'll like help you build out little status pages to kind of provide data quality context kind of at the asset level as well. And then we'll also serve up to you information about usage trends. So you can say, hey, here you can see, hey, here are all the top viewed assets within the last 30 days and how much each one of them were being viewed. And again, if you've onboarded onto our system, it doesn't matter where you're viewing something via our web app, natively, like we'll track all of this for you. And then as a data person or as like the owner of your workspace, at any point in time, you can hop into the asset and you can then like go ahead and like rewind history and see exactly like who is doing what at different moments in time. So you can see like, hey, Steve and Joe certainly use this asset quite a bit. So that's almost that's basically the end of it. So we service up a bunch of visibility for you. But the final thing that we do based off of all of this data that we collect under the hood for you is we can help you with that routine cleanup project, which everyone hates. And so if you enable this as like an option within our system, you can turn on lifecycle automation where you can configure expiration rules that say, hey, if this asset has not been viewed, this says 5 times within 90 days, go ahead and mark it as expiring. And then 30 days later, go ahead and full on archive the asset. And that will not only clean it up within our system, but we'll like flag alerts for the user natively. And we can even do stuff like move those assets around natively into like a quarantine folder. So there's a bunch of investments we're making kind of in the long tail now, going deeper around some of like the failure status page stuff. And then the usage tracking and data, there's like a whole area of our roadmap that's like, it's like Hotjar for your analytics assets where you can like see click interactions and heat maps of exactly what people are doing.
So that last piece, you're going to release like what people are actually clicking on and using in the apps and what they're like drilling into.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't have like a great, I have a comp, but I'm gonna have time to pull it up, right? But you've seen like a heat map of like, everyone knows what a heat map is, but just imagine us like drawing a heat map on top of the dashboard. And you can be like, oh, like everyone's clicking on this filter as an example, right?
Yeah. That's what I've wanted for the last 10 years of my career in BI stuff, of what people are actually using in the things that are made. And then also, when they stop using it. No, this is super cool. I mean, like, my question here is like, this is the brain of like data assets of, put your Google Sheets, put your Tableau dashboards. If you've got data scientists doing their own stuff, and like you showed the example of Mode. If there's DBT changes and that's how you're doing transformations in the warehouse, surface those up. This becoming the brain of data assets. I guess one question I would ask, and if anyone has questions here about like this, One question I would ask is, like, I'm sure people ask you this, like, people talk about like data catalog, data governance. There's good stuff there. I think personally, some of that's smoke and mirrors. I'm sure people ask you, like, how is this different than a data catalog? I mean, I think it clearly is, but yeah, what do you think about that? Like, how do you answer that? And how is this something that, like, I don't know, might be used instead or as a supplement to?
Yeah, I mean, so I definitely believe this is not a data catalog. I mean, part of the problem is it's something new and different. So, yeah, how do you evangelize that, right?
Right, right,
But I think of it being different, both in like the use cases are different and like it has actually built very different. So, like one example, like I don't like connect to Snowflake, you know, like we're not helping you like map out columns in your data warehouse.
right. You don't need to. You're the assets.
Exactly. So we're time running. We really at the asset level, and we're really focused. And our like perspective and orientation is like from data to the business, and from business to the data. And so there are like power users of our product. Often are the folks on the data team, but in our successful deployments, there are more salespeople using our product than there are data people, right? And the usage pattern there is like the data people are in there curating, like building out knowledge, maybe answering questions, but then like it's a salesperson with like a question here and there, or like accessing FAQs and like training documentation, right? And so you get a wide group of people who are using the product, maybe like less frequently, not as power users, but it's actually having a lot more impact there in some ways than it is on the data team. And so, the problems are much less around like, well, how do you understand what data that we have so that we can analyze it, right? It's more like, well, what analysis has happened and what data lives out there that we can make decisions off of, right?
Right.
And to me, that's like the core difference. And yeah, I think in general, it's less of like rip out your data catalog and replace it with workstream. It's, well, do you have these problems around stakeholder workflow? And do you experience these problems around asset sprawl? And is it eroding trust with folks in your organization? Like that's why you bring us in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes total sense. And I personally love the you're calling it Glengarry. I call it Mount Olympus, like the idea of like some organizations, like maybe it's people talk about the data maturity curve. Where are we at here in terms of what decisions we're making? Do we have machine learning yet? Do we have this XYZ? The data maturity curve. But no matter where people are as they go up that curve, right? Finding that Mount Olympus, like I think it's a joint accountability tool between like a bunch of different folks, like who are in sales ops, who are in I don't know, revenue functions, data team, which is probably producing what's behind a lot of this. No, it's super cool. And I like the idea of the category creation too, because like I don't think it's a data catalog personally with what I have seen and experienced. I like the idea of like a new thing here and not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, I think the question becomes what do you call it, right?
Well, work stream.
Workstream category. No, I mean, I think data knowledge management is potentially really interesting, but it's kind of frumpy. Like it feels like something definitely that Gardner would come up with. I like analytics hub, but it's kind of like vague and super like, what does that really mean, right? But I think like there's something about the knowledge management solution. We've talked about like data team enablement solution, which I think is interesting, although like a lot of the catalogs have started to try to brand themselves that way, and so risk confusion, but I don't know if that's that interesting difference.
Well, as soon as you name your category, Gartner's going to put you on a curve, and then you're going to either be on the way up or the way down for something. But no, cool. If anyone out there has any questions about anything, feel free to, ask them. And yeah, I mean, Nick, you told me at the beginning, people can sign up for free, try it out, hook it up to their BI and other assets today. Like if you want to, I don't know, go through a little bit of that.
Yeah. I can quickly do that while questions come in. And Martin, thank you for correcting me that Tableau was actually founded in 2003. And so I shouldn't have had 2000 on that slide. So the quick thing, if this is interesting, so two options. The first is to go to workstream.io. You can set up a free trial whenever. Feel free to go ahead and mess around. We have like a pretty extensive knowledge base with information about how to use the product. There's lots of self-service training materials. You'll get like a bunch of training stuff from me. So if you want to just go ahead and play around, go ahead. And at any point in time, there's a free version and you get a lot of value out of it. The second option is if you want to start a formal pilot, just email me. I'm nick@workstream.io and just drop that you were listening to the session. And we've got a whole team that can help take you through like a focused pilot. We'll work hand in hand with you to like build out your collections of assets and try to point you in the right direction to make as much impact with as least work as possible. So we're here to support you whenever you want and would love to work with you if you're interested. If you do that, you will not only get our appreciation, but you'll get a pretty slick swag package, which everyone who's a pilot customer gets, which includes this North Face that I'm wearing. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a branded North Face jacket, which we're giving out to folks in advance of fall. So it's soft and warm, and I gotta get Lauren hers in the next couple of weeks here. But yeah, either set up a free account online and go ahead and play around, and or email me at nick@workstream.io and we can help you get set up pretty quickly.
Super cool. Where can, you mentioned nick@workstream.io. Where can people, anywhere else find you, or, where can they, learn more about you as a person and as a founder of a company and everything like that?
Follow me on LinkedIn. We're doing lots of content, both content on our like blog and video. Like we're starting to do a video series that's coming out in the next couple weeks and months. And then I've been on a lot of shows recently. I was just chatting with the Seattle data guy recently, actually about this same concept. And I think he might be dropping the video in the next couple of days. You can follow me on LinkedIn or even like the Workstream like corporate account. And that's a pretty good centralized feed for any personal opinions that I have or things we're doing as a team.
But cool. Thanks for joining.